Hello everyone, Pineapple here with Big Finish's latest interesting box set, different yet very much in the same vein as Zygon Century. Here we have planet Krynoid'd Nightfall. Unlike Zygon Century's episodic, but with a story arc structure, here we have a full story split into 3 parts, featuring the Krynoid'ds. The Krynoid'ds are unique in their properties but boil down to possessive and carnivorous hive mind plants. First seen in the Seeds of Doom and even having their own little series with BBV. But this is their first time at the forefront for Big Finish, even if they had a couple of appearances before this. First, let's take a look at the characters in Nightfall. Of course, as you can see on the cover, we have Paul McGann as the 8th Doctor, and while the acting is good, I have major issues with his portrayal that we'll get to when talking about Episode 2. Speaking of characters that leave in Episode 2, we have the Governor of the Colony Sunlight, Governor Hoden, played by Reese Shearsmith, who was in Doctor Who before in the Series 9 episode Sleep No More. While the Governor can be a bit wishy-washy in his choices, Shearsmith plays the role really well, and the choices the character makes fit together well, making for great storytelling and drama. And while his wife does less, Clarissa, played by Reiki Iola, the hostess from Midnight, her character and those around her are easy to empathise with. Their daughter Letty Hoden, played by M. Prendergast, starts as your typical rich bitch daddy's girl who laughs like but really comes together in the 3rd story, not turning out of character but evolving really well, serving the people like her father tried to before his love for his wife got in the way, but of course still having some entitlement and whining issues. Next we have Carl Magnus, played by Joseph Ayer. And he starts as another character archetype, the guy working for a big company and is more focused on money and development than human lives. But even after being super self-centered, the character does have a couple of extra layers. Not as entertaining or progressive as Letty, but still interesting enough to last the 3 main parts. Lastly of the main players is the Hart family, starting with Maggie, Mother Astronaut, and Filthy Cheetah. Maggie is one of the more active characters, as her affair partner is the first to be Krynoid'd, and her and her family are all given prominence in the story, and she is one of the characters that doesn't suffer a horrible, painful fate. Much like a lot of them, she's well written, morally grey, and interesting. She seems a decent person at heart, but is brazen enough to bring her affair partner into her home she shares with her husband, said husband Fletcher, actually allowing Piotr to hide with them. And she keeps fighting for the sake of everyone and her son as the story goes along. Fletcher, while not as active, is also key in the story, more focused on his family than politics or space. Their family trapped, brought to sunlight with promises of wealth, but now living in the fringe and unable to afford a way off planet. So he starts building his own ship, although the fact it only holds 2 has some worrying implications. Then there's their son Tiro, brought to violence by his collapsing family, taking a Krynoid'd, preying on an emotionally unstable young woman, and letting the Krynoid'd literally eat the rich. Out of the 2 younger characters, I prefer Letty. There are other good characters that I don't have much to talk about. Piotr isn't that much of a complex or major character beyond episode 1, but his appearance does well to push Maggie, Hoden and Fletcher in their stories. There is also Bryn Forrester, one of the last survivors, and while I don't have that much to say, she is performed pretty well by Melody Brown, and is entertaining. This set also has its own intro theme, which is sort of a 50-50 to me. A few of its parts fit really well, but in some small moments it kind of sounds like a Mario Party song, devaluing the legitimately eerie and foreboding sound. Now to take a quick look at the plot, we have episode 1, Sunlight by Jonathan Morris, mostly set up and getting us used to the characters and world. A nice mix of the sci-fi and the drama, with the colony's artificial sunlight satellite, the rich and poor sides, and both the Hoden and Hart families being established to show exactly how the desperation and love of 2 people allow the Krynoid to be established. Clarissa Hoden is deathly ill, so when Robert and Magnus realized the Krynoids that appeared in space healed Piotr, so after warring with himself, as for years there have been hidden and secret plans in place to deal with Krynoids, but his love for his wife wins out, so he willingly infects her, both her and Piotr mutating. Tiro's hatred of the rich due to his family's position is made clear, setting up his later actions well. And as Piotr mutates, Maggie abandons her family to see him safe, but ends up being attacked by him, running into Bryn and her colleague Joan, played by Chloe Sommer. all of them running into what is rumoured as the original colony, and finding the Doctor in cryo, having been put in there so that his body could kill the Krynoid'd infection. It's a really solid opening, and due to the unfortunate problems I have with the next two parts, might be my favourite. But if I had one proper issue with this one, it's that sometimes the changing of perspectives from Maggie to Holden, to Fletcher, to Bryn, to Carl, can feel a little rushed and ill-paced. I'm not sure whether to rate this as a whole or singular, but if I had to, I'd give the opening a solid 8. I wasn't expecting anything special, but I really got sucked in. Next is Sunset by Jonathan S. Powell, the middle story. Where the first was focused on setting up the dominoes, this one is more action-focused. There are great character moments, but paying off what was built up in episode 1. But I think I need to point out my one major issue with this part: the Doctor. I love 8, and Paul McGann is very rarely lacking in performance, and I'm happy to say this is not one of those times. But where the second Doctor appearing at least worked in Zygon Century, as it had standalone episodes, this set wanted to include the Doctor, but not take the focus away from the new characters, and it just doesn't work. 8's motivation is to find his TARDIS so he can go back to the previous Krynoid outbreak like 100 years ago and save Liv. So he works with our characters as the Piotr and Clarissa Krynoid'd destroy the city. But in the end, after Holden holds him hostage, wanting to go back in time to stop him and his wife getting into this situation, the Doctor tells him to piss off and leaves. What? So 8 sees the two massive Krynoids attacking, and almost verbatim says, "You can figure it out," and pisses off. The writer trying to justify this as being for Liv's sake. Fuck off. Either this should have just gone all in and been an 8 story, or there should have been no Doctor, as I think the main characters we meet would be able to hold the audience's attention on their own. The only real reason he is here that isn't a writing mistake is for marketing reasons, making sure that if audiences don't want to try a box set with no returning characters, or they don't particularly care about the Krynoids, they'll buy in for popular audio Doctor 8. The only way to write around this would be 8 knowing what happens next episode and refusing to interfere, as 8 knows exactly what damaging the Web of Time would do. See Charlie's arc. Or if the featured Doctor was 7 and he had some grand plan in his darker arc, and even that would be a bit of a stretch. But as it sits, there is no real justification for the Doctor acting the way he does. It is very out of character.
Well, good luck, Holden. There's nothing more I can do to help, so you're on your own from now on.
Okay, apart from all those complaints, Holden gets some good moments before he lets the Clarissa Krynoid eat him. We get some more interesting lore about the settlement and the reveal that this planet is Verdana, the Krynoid home world. The freezing climate hiding the Krynoid away. The governors, having known about it, explaining Holden's conflicted actions, so the Krynoid's arrival was to rescue their people. Tiro emotionally manipulates Letty with the love of her mother, freeing her Krynoid mother, as I said before, in a nice use of metaphor I didn't get till I reflected on the episode, eating the rich. In the end, Maggie and Tiro head into space, while everyone else tries to keep things contained on the ground, and the episode is left on a hell of a cliffhanger as Maggie uses the Sunlight satellite to burn the Clarissa Krynoid to death after it becomes the last one standing. But the laser not only temporarily blinds almost everyone on the ground and cuts communications, but hundreds more Krynoid pods make landfall ready to prey on the blinded colony. I liked it, not as much as episode 1, but the Doctor coming in, having his moment and then fucking off really sits poorly with me, even a week after listening. So while there was a lot I liked with my hang-ups, I'll have to give Sunset a 6.5. I feel like I could go down to a 6 or even up to a 7, but I've gotta be more brutal with a fumble like this. Lastly, we have Darkness by Chris Chapman, and while I know it has no real meaning, I'm tempted to say it insists upon itself.
It insists upon itself, Lois.
What?
It insists upon itself.
What does that even mean?
I liked a lot that was here. The very dark tone and horror movie one by one killings are all great ideas, but I felt like the first half of the story dragged on too long. We get these great little detours showing the common people, a sick man being tended to, and a mother, father and daughter, and we get a step by step of how they first deal with the blindness, the panic, and when the seed pods fall, how they get infected and die in horrific and twisted fashion. direction. Doctor Who can be great when it's dark, just look at the Miracle of Pendor Cove from Zygon Century. So I love the idea and the performances, but we just kept going back to them when all I wanted to do was go back to our main characters. Eventually the blindness fades, daughter-eating parents, man-eating woman, and an army of Krynoid mutants descending on those left. Bryn and Magnus try and fail to get off planet, and Letty takes after her father, leading some of the blinded people to safety, and eventually leading a large group of Krynoid zombies away from the humans. Like I said, keeping her privileged brat status, but making her endearing too. Eventually Maggie and Tiro make it home with nary a plan, but trying to meet up with Fletcher, and Fletcher reveals his spaceship built for two, but when Letty pops up, the parents eventually decide to give Tiro and Letty the chance to tell all to the authorities, sending them off into space. By the end, basically everyone dies. Maggie and Fletcher are almost Krynoid food, if not for Bryn coming at the last second, making compost out of the Krynoid, leaving the story open-ended with a sliver of hope. There's a lot of good stuff, but with the pacing issues, I'll have to keep part 1 as my fave, so that leaves Darkness with a 7.5 out of 10. In summary, that leaves Planet Krynoid'd Nightfall with a 7.3 out of 10, and even with my issues with each part and the fact the Doctor shouldn't have appeared, I really enjoyed this horror story. And I like that with this and Zygon Sentry, Big Finish are going back to exploring darker themes and trying, though not totally, letting these monsters and excellent Doctor Who ideas get their own headline stories, focusing on a race more than a returning character like Dark Gallifrey and the recently ongoing Space Security Service series that I'm interested to see. Thank you everybody for watching my review of Planet Krynoid. Please like the video if you liked it, comment down below if you wish, consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do, ring the notification bell so that you're told every single time that I make an upload. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next review. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast. Because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.